Am I the asshole for refusing agree with my co-teacher and grade a student lower? Thank you all for the kind replies and messages. I'm going to send some to a few of my vocal colleagues. I'll try to reply, but I have work early. Thank you so much. Thank you, but please don't spend money on awards for me or give me your free awards. The time that you use to award could be spent reading, free, about an organization called Court-Appointed Special Advocates. Miss M. Instead of doing many projects and assigning, grading homework for the 2020-2021 school year, I was given the opportunity to have one major assignment and so I chose to do so. My choice was to have the students spend August until April studying a country and culture and making a presentation on it. Google Slides, dioramas, poster boards, and written and drawn reports were all accepted. Obviously, not everyone has the chance to use updated materials or has internet access, and so everyone used what they could get their hands on. My student, Danny, did his project on the USSR using outdated world books, 1987. He drew beautifully, he wrote, and he made 10 pages that he, and I, were very proud of. They were his own words. He wrote about historical figures from the USSR, he talked about the military history, and he did a good job. Everything was correct from that period and he didn't have the internet or anything, so he used the resources he had at home to do his best, and he did just that. He could do printing at home, so he cut out photos from old National Geographic magazines when he needed to use actual photos. I graded him for effort and for the content, and it was 100%. He used what he could, he did what he could, and the USSR and Soviet culture were very prevalent in Europe at one point. My co-teacher Melissa wants to grade him lower because the USSR doesn't exist anymore, but I completely disagree. Danny lives with his grandma, he doesn't have regular internet access, he didn't have the ability or the help to use the internet, and he couldn't afford to print a lot of photos to make a poster board. He made a beautiful report and put a lot of time and care into it, and it deserves a good grade. She went to the principal to tattle on me, and I told the principal flat out that Melissa could choose to teach with someone else, what she was asking, because I was hostile towards her teaching methods. A few other teachers have been telling me that I should have agreed with Melissa to keep the peace, but in my mind, I'm right because my 9-year-old student was counting on me. I don't need to placate my co-teacher's ego or let her go on a fucking power trip over a 9-year-old. Not the asshole. Do these other teachers realize that Melissa wants to penalize a student due to lack of internet access? She must be quite a complainer to bring this issue up to other employees. I would not for 1 minute give in to this teacher. She has a lot of nerve even making her prejudice public, and hopefully she will be called out for it. Not the asshole. JFC, he's 9. If you reward him for his efforts by punishing him, he will never put this kind of effort into academia again. Not the asshole. You have to consider what you are trying to teach the children. Are you trying to make sure they know specific facts about Finland, or are you trying to teach them to research and present information about new subjects? You are what teachers are supposed to be. Nice work. Edited for clarity. Not the asshole. If Melissa's issue is that the USSR doesn't exist anymore, it sounds like she needs to do some research into how much the remnants of that time still affect some countries to this day. What was the kid supposed to do? End every talking point with, but they're gone now. And shout out to you for not finding some way to stickler points off of their grade, especially after the effort it sounds like the kid put into the project. We need more teachers with your mindset. Not the asshole. You are entirely correct. You're teaching how to research, and it doesn't matter if he's up to date. Not to mention that penalizing someone for too poor to have internet is a total dick move. Definitely not the asshole from my perspective. He did a history report about a very real and powerful country. As a teaching enthusiast, wannabe one, I would still take points off if they didn't state that it's not a country, but it'd be like 5 points, and I'd make sure to explain why just so the student learns current history as well. Could even make it a small bonus report to earn it back if he writes 2 paragraphs for why USSR isn't a country anymore. But fucks Melissa, she sounds like a terrible teacher if that's how she acts. As a teacher, I am horrified by Melissa. He did exactly what he was supposed to. Did the rubric say it has to be a current country? If so, then you could conceivably take a few points off. I wouldn't. It's a pandemic. Students are limited to what they can get it. And a little bit of grace can go a long way. B. Not the asshole. He deserves his 100%. It sounds like he worked very hard for it. Not the asshole. You are a great teacher and that boy is lucky to have you in his corner. Melissa doesn't belong in education because she doesn't care about teaching, she just cares about keeping score. Info. This was a months-long project, and at no point did either you or Melissa check in with Danny or any of the other students to make sure they were on track with the assignment and had what they needed. Not the asshole. Give that kid the A+ he deserves. Not the asshole. Sometimes being a teacher means being understanding of a kid's situation. You cannot have the same set of expectations for every student, particularly if that student does not have access to the same resources, as it sounds like this student didn't, given that he didn't have internet access, or if they are not cognitively at the same level as their peers. It doesn't sound like the other teacher is entirely wrong either. This is outdated information and it should be made clear to the student that it is outdated. It sounds like the co-teacher is not giving you enough leeway, as you were the one working the student, and who had made it clear to the student that using the resources he had at his disposal was okay. Not the asshole. Good job on advocating for Danny. He put in the work, learned a lot, and deserves a good grade. Melissa and the other teachers need to understand the reality that some students have limited resources. Not the asshole. Honestly, they're 9 in a pandemic, seemingly in an impoverished school, give them all %100, whatever. This won't get him anything but self-satisfaction. It's weird that Melissa is showing such little compassion for a tough situation. Grading tough doesn't mean you are a good teacher, and unless the instructions said it had to be an existing country, he did nothing wrong. Not the asshole. Melissa is the kind of teacher who teaches you to put in the bare minimum only. Not the asshole. You graded on the work done. Work done under limited means in an extraordinary year. Not the asshole looking at teaching pedagogy. What you are trying to grade, skill formation of researching, is so useful for students. And the fact this student is able to do such a great job with limited resources compared to a lot of students is so commendable. Your co-teacher needs a wake-up call and to see the bigger picture. While collaboration in teaching is important, advocating for your students takes priority. Not the asshole. If he had chosen to make a report on ancient Egypt, you would have graded it based on what we historically know. He chose to do his project on an ancient-ish culture that no longer exists. Kudos for supporting his effort. For a 9-year-old to work on a project for 8 months without their teachers realizing that they were writing about the USSR instead of modern Russia means that you failed your student. There should have been multiple check-ins and drafts, especially for students that young. I'm giving you and Melissa and everyone sucks here for that reason, although Melissa is worse for wanting to punish the student for the teacher's failings. Not the asshole. As an educator, I fully support your decision to support Danny and grade his assignment with the knowledge that he used the resources he had at home. My only question is, how can a teacher not know the subject of a student's year-long project when they are receiving a grade? If Melissa had an issue with Danny doing his project on a no longer existing country, then she should have brought that up in the beginning of the year. I'm just wanting to know what a school would require a several months long project like that for a 9-year-old. Obviously not the asshole. This post makes no sense. Please don't back down on this. I teach in a Title I school, so many of our students, like Danny, lack adequate resources, especially when it comes to learning at home. I can't imagine penalizing a student who put in that much effort because the country doesn't exist anymore. Even if that were explicitly in the instructions, that child can't help his circumstances. You are definitely not the asshole, but Melissa and anyone who defends her certainly is. Stand your ground and continue to be an amazing and supportive teacher. We need more people like you in the profession. Not the asshole, but why did you even post here? You already made up your mind and you obviously aren't an awe. Not the asshole. He should be graded based on the quality of his work, effort and what he submitted. Sounds like he also learned a lot. He should not be downgraded because of limited access. That has nothing to do with his actual own ability, how much he learned and efforts to complete the project. Also, it sounds like the assignment was not for a current country or culture but a country or culture. If someone chose to do something about the, say, Ottoman Empire, would that have mattered? You sound like a great teacher. As a kid who grew up having limited resources compared to some peers and parents who couldn't really help, I always appreciated teachers who understood that. Even more so now than I did back in the day. Thanks for standing up for that kid. Not the asshole, bless you for standing up for him. Not the asshole, I'm a paraprofessional, you made the right call. Not the asshole, did any of your students do a presentation on the Aztec, Maya or Inca? If they did, does Melissa want to penalize them as well, since those civilizations no longer exist? If she doesn't want to penalize them, why does she want to penalize the kid that did a report on the USSR? How is his choice different from theirs? If Melissa was okay with the Aztec, Maya or Inca as choices, then tell the principal and other teachers that she was only targeting the student that did the USSR. Not the asshole, maybe Melissa should have agreed with you to keep the peace. Or she shouldn't be a whole slew of names I would really like to call her right now. Keep fighting for kids like Danny. This project could be the difference between Danny the dropout or Danny the teacher. Laughing my ass off, it's a 9-year-old, why is she insistent on it? Info. Was your co-teacher involved in the planning of this project? Were they involved in each step? Did they check in along with you? I work co-teachers and we are equal on the classroom. I don't make a decision without her agreement and vice versa. We are equal peers. I would never create an assignment with explicit agreement from her. We decide on grading together and compromise if we disagree. So, I guess my question is this. Did you do all of that? Was your co-teacher involved in the planning of the project? Did they have the ability to contact the student? Do they have an equal voice in how the project is graded? If you disagree on grading, what's the procedure? Those things need to be decided before you work with a co-teacher. Absolutely not the asshole. That kid worked hard, learned some great research and presentation skills, and met the expectations for the project. It sounds like this was a long-term project. At any time did your co-teacher check in with this kid or offer to help him access more updated materials? You're implementing equitable grading practices and she needs to look at how the expectations can be better communicated for next time if she still finds this unacceptable. Not the asshole. Never compromise to keep the peace. Trying to get you to do so is an abuse tactic. Bravo. I wish I had teachers like you growing up. Plus, from the rubric you described, you just said country. You didn't say it still had to exist. And #X200B. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Did she specify that it had to be a current country? I mean, he did the work and did it well from what you say. Sounds like he fulfilled the requirements to me. Not the asshole, and good on you for standing up for your student. Not the asshole. But I actually just came here to say you are an amazing teacher. Well done. You are going to inspire whole generations of doctors, teachers, inventors and entrepreneurs and tradesmen who will change our world and build our future. Keep up the good work. Personally, I think you're inspiring. Not the asshole. The fact that a 9-year-old made a whole-ass presentation on the history of the USSR just using books in his house is absolutely incredible. Emo. I am a huge believer that the vast majority of grades before high school level should be based on effort, especially in a school with probably limited resources and in the middle of a pandemic. Not the asshole, good for you for standing up to her. That child is what matters, not her fragile ego. He worked hard and he earned his grade. It's teachers like you that inspire students to excel. Not the asshole, but does the school not have a library? Not the asshole. Especially if you didn't specify it had to be an extant country. Would the co-teacher have thrown a similar fit if they did the report about Mesopotamia or ancient Rome? Besides, the student clearly did the best they could with the resources available, and that adaptation and versatility seems like it's more important than looking up what the deal with Sweden is on Wikipedia. Side note, the other teachers kind of suck too. By their argument, Melissa should have let it fly to keep the peace, not go whining to the principal. I pity any students that end up with her because it seems like she's the my way or the highway sort of teacher that every student dreads getting. Not the asshole. As a teacher you are making the most equitable and fair decision. Yeah, it might not be a country anymore, but when you think of the skills you are asking him to do, he did all of that. Yeah, content is great and all, but the skills you asked for was research and I assume some sort of analyzing, which are far more valuable anyways. Not the asshole. As a kid with outdated world books, my mom actually sold them in order to get us a set, in the days before internet. I know how to use a card catalog. You are awesome. He did an accurate, thorough report and his effort should be rewarded. Your co-teacher was on a power trip and wants to punish a hard-working student for not having internet. Any teacher who thinks a 9-year-old should be punished with a lower grade to keep the peace with an adult should probably reconsider their choice to teach. You encouraged him and were flexible enough to let him use what he had. What he truly learned has nothing to do with the USSR. Good job. Thank you for having that student's back. Seriously. Not the asshole op. Seriously, as a teacher it is refreshing to hear of a student who is disadvantaged, with respect to internet access anyway, and still put in a great effort to do a project. He deserves his 100. He worked with less help and advantage than other students and still did a bang-up job. I would love to see my disadvantaged students do this, but most are so beaten down by circumstances that they just don't bother. Good for you, sir, for standing up to this completely privileged madam. You did right. Not the asshole, but as a fellow teacher, be careful of putting all of your eggs into one basket. Grading one massive project has the capacity to backfire, as it may not be a true representation of a student's understanding and mastery of a subject. Instead, for future, scaffold it into subparts: diorama, write-up, presentation, etc. to cover yourself from those types of claims, especially with a 9-year-old. But if their only reason to grade lower is, because the USSR is no longer a country, unless it's said in your rubric or assignment handout it has to be a current country, tell your co-teacher to kick rocks. A few other teachers have been telling me that I should have agreed with Melissa to keep the peace, but in my mind, I'm right because my 9-year-old student was counting on me. I don't need to placate my co-teacher's ego or let her go on a fucking power trip over a 9-year-old. Yee up. You're there for the kids, not for Melissa. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Do not agree with someone to keep the peace, that's them telling you that her professionalism and experience is more valid than yours. She literally wants to punish a student who doesn't have any internet access, due to no fault of his own. She is not being a supportive teacher and should think about whether she is in the right profession. Not the asshole. He is 9 years old. I went to college, recently, with a lot of people who couldn't have done what he did. Not the asshole. I hope he mentioned how they won the space race.